G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome to 2016, first video of the year. Sorry about the release gap over the last couple of days. It's actually taking a little bit of effort to get everything up and running after New Year's. It was a big New Year's, and then me and the family actually haven't been all that well since then. But no matter, all recovered, and today we're out in the J2M3, and I'm about to make a horrible mistake that I'm going to spend the rest of this battle trying to recover from. So the J2M3 is a land-based fighter, therefore on Pacific maps where the carriers are the primary runway, it gets an air spawn. It also has a fairly good climb rate. Now I use this to good effect at the start of the match, taking this aircraft out to almost 20,000 feet and cruising around for about 6 minutes before I begin this long dive, and in that time I didn't spot any other enemy aircraft. However, a low-flying aircraft on our team proxy spotted 4 enemy aircraft on the runway. Now, being an allied team, I made the assumption that everybody was ground pounding at the runway and began a long, slow dive, burning off energy so I didn't rip my wings, all the way down to the runway at the A point. Now, on the way down, I did spot a B-17. It was flying at about 10,000 feet. It already had Japanese fighters on it, so that wasn't a problem, and I did spot a single enemy aircraft show up at altitude, at about 18,000 feet. So ideal altitude for me to have engaged, should I have not started the dive. But there was only one, and there was at least 1 or 2 other aircraft that were at that altitude with me before I began my dive. You can already see what's about to happen here. I got down. Only one fighter was waiting at the runway, and coming in with this much energy and this much speed, taking out a P-63 was not difficult. Pushed the throttles back to maximum out the other side, and it was about at this point that the rest of the enemy team has appeared at 20,000 feet over the top of our entire task force. And mistakes like this are precisely why I shouldn't fly when drinking. Or maybe the reason why I should fly with drinking, because this match was a lot of fun. Regardless, when I was at 20,000 feet, if I had swung left and did a left-hand pass over the northeastern section of the map, and I would have come across the rest of the enemy team long before diving all the way down to the deck, and would have already been engaged at this point. Unfortunately, at the moment, I am out of position, I'm out of altitude, I'm in absolutely no place to engage the rest of these fighters, but there is one good thing that is going on here at the moment. I'm so far out to the west side of this map that nobody on the enemy team has a visual lock on me. So, let's speed up time a little bit and start a little bit of elevator music as I slowly begin to climb back to altitude over this side of the map, being very careful to make sure nobody on the enemy team gets close enough to detect me until I'm back at altitude. So there we have it, compressing about 5 minutes worth of time down into 1, carefully avoiding the enemy team, I was able to get back to altitude. Now this worked because of 2 reasons. Firstly, staying out of the detection range meant that nobody would move to intercept me. If they'd seen a J2M climbing to altitude before I actually was at altitude, somebody would have come over to swat me down long before I got to this high. Now the second reason I got up here is, well, the obvious one. As the Allies attacked the Japanese aircraft surrendered altitude in order to evade attacks. The Allied aircraft, of course, dropped altitude in order to continue those attacks, and they were slowly stepping their way down the whole way as I was climbing up in the distance. This has left me in a pretty good spot now. This is the spot that I should have been in this fight to begin with, so let's see what I can do with it. So just doing a nice slow rollover at altitude, I'm trying to work out exactly who to dive on first. Now in this situation when everybody's fairly close to the deck, I try and build my targeting hierarchy based on performance. The Spitfire would normally have been my primary target, however it was at too low an altitude directly below me, it would have put my plane at risk diving on that much of an angle. So make a pass on the P-51 first. No hits, no love. Now instead of pulling out of the dive, I'm actually going to continue, accelerate out to maximum speed. Make a shot at the F-82E. No love, I'm not going to continue through, I want to maintain the speed, push the plane back into a climb, and boom out of the area. The J2M fully upgraded has enough horsepower to take itself all the way back up to altitude again, even from a dive like that. However, that's not the only reason I went in so deep. What I was hoping to do is bait a couple of enemy fighters, because we do have some allies around here. And I in fact baited the F-82. It's trying to climb vertical with me, blows all of its energy in that near vertical climb, and gets popped by the premium Focke-Wulf 190. So half loop into dive, and we head back in again. Next target's going to be the Spitfire. I want to get rid of these things. The Spitfires are actually the aircraft that I fear the most here, especially the Griffin Spits. They can keep up with the J2M, and they've got the firepower to kill us, plus they're more manoeuvrable aircraft. So I get a good critical strike and completely remove the Spitfire's elevator. The pilot realises he is done for in the battle and just bails out of the plane, surrendering the second kill to me. Once again, maintain maximum airspeed out for as long as I can. I try and do my rollovers just before passing 300 kilometers an hour. Once you drop below 300, the J2M3 tends to wallow a little bit. It's not so sharp in the turns, and you sort of need that sharpness for clean, controlled turning. So, we have another Spitfire F. This one sees me coming, rolls to invert and then into a dive. I try and take a lead on him, but unfortunately I wasn't at a good enough angle with the guns to actually be able to get a lead shot. I could have committed to a dive following him, but that would have been playing to his strengths, not mine. So instead took the plane into the vertical. Unfortunately, going for that lead shot did cost me my left hand flap, so no more flaps for me in any of my turns, but that's fine. At this point I'm not going to outturn a Spitfire anyway, so I don't really need it. Back into a dive and then into a corkscrew right on top of him. The Spitfire breaks out to the right hand side. I take it back for altitude, but this time I do a long, wide turn rather than going directly vertical. I'm going to try and get a lead in a slashing attack before taking the plane back into the vertical again. Now this is something that actually confuses a lot of people. At the moment he's at a higher altitude than me, but I'm still at a higher energy state. This is because even if he was to dive from his altitude to my altitude, he wouldn't make my airspeed, so I'm still attacking from an energy advantage. Once again, take the J2M3 into the vertical, this time roll it over, and he has blown so much energy I was able to actually outturn him in the vertical. He sees me coming, immediately inverts back into a dive to get underneath my guns and pulls himself safe, no hits for me. But this does force him into a sharp manoeuvre, once again at low altitude, at low airspeed, costing him all of his energy. However, I'm starting to bleed off a lot of mine at this point as well, so rather than turning back for another attack, I decided to open up the distance a little bit so I could climb out a little bit of extra altitude and get myself into a better position before resuming the attack. And a Focke-Wulf 190 displays why you do not go head on, even with something like a Spitfire. But I'll talk about that in just a moment. So the Spitfire reverses its turn to come back around on my 6, open up the throttles, even though my engine's overheating, and pull back for altitude. I can see the P-47 up ahead. The Spitfire comes in from behind, it's trying to climb with me, it's at a lower energy state, it can't keep it up, it pushes itself into a stall trying to follow me, and the J2M that's on our team comes through and cleans him out. Now this time I'd like to introduce YorT. YorT is the guy that Gaijin's auto squad system put me into a squad with. As it turns out, talking to him in chat in this battle, he is one of my subscribers. His J2M3 is brand new, it has no upgrades whatsoever, and he's currently flying trying to keep a close eye on me. At this point it only looks like we have one P-47 left to deal with. I'm running an overheating engine, I'm down to only 301 rounds of cannon, so I'm going to head back towards the runway and see whether or not I can get a landing in. I'm also going to punch as a little bit of bait, since I'm doing so well with my baiting in this match, that I'm going to go and land over all chat to see whether or not I can get the attention of this P-47 and drag him down to the deck. Now YorT's going to be keeping an eye on me and is going to prove to be a bloody good wingman for the rest of this match, so a quick shout out to YorT, bloody good flying in this match with the stock J2M3 mate, and it was a pleasure flying with you. So why I start playing around with my antics near the runway to try and bait a P-47 down here to fight, let's have a quick chat about that Focke-Wulf 190 from before, the premium 190 that lost the head-on. Head-on attacks are extremely situational. In most cases they are a last resort only and should not be used as a primary attack. The Focke-Wulf 190 in this match just did a perfect demonstration of this. That Spitfire had blown all of its energy trying to engage me. It was maintaining about 300-350 kilometers an hour. It could not get into a position to climb. All it could do was turn at low altitude. It was also damaged from the engagement with me. That Focke-Wulf 190 was coming out of a dive from about 8,000 feet. He had energy coming out of every orifice. He could have attacked that Spitfire from any angle that he chose to attack from, and instead he chose to go head on with an aircraft that was completely, utterly and totally at his mercy, and he lost. This is why head-ons are last resort or situational only. They hand an advantage to your enemy that your enemy shouldn't have in the first place. The Spitfire, conversely, did exactly the right thing. He was damaged, he was at low altitude, he was at low energy. Putting himself in that head-on gave him the best chance of survival, and it worked. So I'm going to be forced to engage in head-on attacks a number of times during the rest of this battle. I'll try to explain each time why I chose to do it. So, posting in all chat didn't seem to bait the P-47, he just went and engaged the B-17, and then I got a flash in the distance of a second aircraft. I quickly checked the scoreboard, sure enough there was an extra aircraft up, and it turns out the P-47, which is a P-47M, is now backed up with a premium American Spitfire. Well, that just made things a little more interesting. So as before, I still consider the premium Mark 9 Spitfire to be the more dangerous aircraft, so I tried to put guns on it first. However, attempting to engage the Spitfire has allowed the P-47M to move in directly above me. It's getting ready to go into a dive, so immediately split S. The Spitfire has reversed its turn and is coming back at me. At the moment I'm wedged between two aircraft, so I am going to try a head-on pass. However, making sure to keep a slight angle on in order to avoid the shots from the Spitfire. Unfortunately, I wasn't quick enough to avoid the shots from the P-47M. Thankfully, YorT's arrived on the scene. He's engaged the P-47M, which is allowing me position to maneuver. The damage to the aircraft has slightly impeded the aircraft's handling, but not by enough to matter, and not by enough that it's going to make a difference. I'm engaging a Spitfire here, so I never had the maneuverability to outmaneuver it to begin with. What I have to do is outfly it. And once again, I'm going to show you the other side of that head-on coin. This time I'm attempting to kill or at least force this Spitfire to turn, as I need to actually force this into a maneuvering fight. The P-47M has zoomed out the other end and is turning back around as we speak. He's about to start diving through. In fact, you'll hear his prop buzz past in just a few moments. If I fly in a straight line, I make myself an easy target. I have to engage in a maneuvering fight with the Spitfire despite the Spitfire having better maneuverability, so I need to continually force it to keep its guns away from me, even if it means putting myself at risk of taking a hit from its own guns. Now this time the Spitfire seems to have worked out that YorT is actually covering me, and he's disengaged from me and is attempting to knock out YorT, clearing my cover. YorT's been doing such a good job of providing me with cover up to this point, it would be incredibly rude of me not to return the favour. Hard dive into a 10G pullout, bring the guns up, put it where I think the Spitfire's going to go and squeeze the trigger, critical hit to the aircraft, completely cripple its right hand aileron and wing right as my crew blacks out. As soon as the blackout clears, immediately reverse my turn to fall back onto the Spitfire, but there was no need, the damage was fatal. The Spitfire's into the drink and YorT is clean and clear. However, that whistling sound was the sound of a P-47M diving past. Thankfully, we managed to pull out of its guns just fast enough. The P-47's a little odd here, it seems to have blown a lot of energy at this point. He takes it hard into the vertical, and I decide to follow, full on the web. And I actually managed to get some strikes across the aircraft. Unfortunately, I'm rapidly running out of cannon rounds, and I'm also going into a stall. Remember what I said earlier on in the match about the J2M3 not handling very well below 300 kilometers an hour? It doesn't get any better at stall speeds. If I had an extra 100 kilometers an hour when I went vertical, I probably could have ended this P-47M right there and then. Still, I control the stall into a corkscrew, fall on the back of the P-47M and begin to pursue it down. Unfortunately, I'm down to the last of my cannon rounds, only 22 left. P-47 scissors hard, I take the J2M3 straight into the vertical, and YorT comes in behind with the second J2M3 and swats the P-47M. And at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that his J2M3 is not going to be stock anymore after this match. So, 3 kills for the match in the J2M3, and I'm hoping you guys can understand why it made 3rd place in my top 10 this year. This is a hell of a plane and a hell of a lot of fun to fly. So anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.